Excellent. Okay. All right. So Austin, so just from your standpoint, one, I just want to talk a little bit about Austin has a great team. He's doing some great things in the marketplace. He lives in I think up at, north of Salt Lake, the bountiful North Salt Lake area. And if you know where that is, just a little bit, about 10-15 minutes north of Salt Lake City. And when I first met Austin, he was making a 6-figure income, and we would always have a little bit of a joke of saying, hey, I don't know if I'm ever going to do this again. And today he's truly done some extraordinary things. He's a top 100 team. He's a top 11, if you want to be exact, in regards to what he did last year with Century 21, with hundreds of thousands of 133,000 agents worldwide. And here he led the world for Century 21. So it's just really cool to see his journey and what he's done over the last 5 to 7 years specifically. And so just excited to have you here, Austin.
Thanks, George. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Hey, so let's start off with this just really quick. So in relationship to your business, talk just a little bit about your journey into this business and how you got into it. And so we get to know you just a little bit more on a more intimate level of just how you got into the business, what started you in the business, how many years ago that was, and then to get into mindset, some skills, and how you're tracking business today, how you're keeping yourself positive and working through that.
Sure. Yeah, that's there's a lot to unpack there, I guess. So starting in the business, I actually started, probably 12 years ago, and got into the business and failed. And, I didn't do what I needed to do to succeed at the time. And so I said, real estate's not for me. And I got out of the business. And, I think I've shared, before that, the time that I was there in real estate, I didn't actually spend doing money-making activities. I spent my time designing business cards and trying to get my pictures perfect and all these things, just didn't actually have any real value. It wasn't talking to people. It wasn't really doing anything. It was kind of moving papers around and wanting to act busy. So I failed and I got out of the business, and, a couple years went by, and Jeremy Laguerre, I'm sure you all know him. He's my brother-in-law. And, he encouraged me to say, Austin, give this another chance, come back. Let us show you what can be possible in real estate. And so I said, all right, let's go. And he and Dave Parker had a team that I joined, and it was awesome, and started closing deals. And it just really was such a different experience from my first go around, because the lesson was, all right, this is what you need to do. This is how you do it. I mean, those success formulas and things that you were outlining, that's essentially what we were doing. It was focusing on how many contacts I was having in a day, focusing on how many phone calls I was doing, and really just, focusing on those things. That's what led me to have the success that I had. And, it's been 9.5 years since I had my second start in real estate, and it's been amazing.
Yeah, I love that. So it took you 2 times.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's cool. Okay, so let's switch gears, because you said the magical word, man. You said prospecting. So talk about prospecting. I mean, I know you're very passionate about it. Talk about what your expectations are. Talk about what you've done. Talk about what your team does. Talk about what your expectations are in regards to prospecting in today's marketplace.
Well, it hasn't changed much. People are still going to be buying and selling houses. There are still deals getting done. Had a team meeting yesterday with our team, and Cheyenne put 3 deals under contract over the weekend, and Aaron got 2 new listings, and one of them is under contract. And people are still doing things. And I know California is a little different with some of the shutdowns and things that they have there that would maybe make it a little more difficult. But it also is a great opportunity to say, all right, how am I going to separate myself? Because people in the past, real estate was kind of, well, this is what you do, and here are these things. And most people maybe did 1/3 of those things. And so by doing more, you could separate yourself and really show, hey, this is who I am. This is how I'm special. This is how I work the best for my clients, better than anybody else. We have that same opportunity, because, guys, 90% of agents have gone to just doing nothing right now. They are They are scared. Guys, I'm scared. Let me like put that out there that I have my moments of anxiety and fear. And I think it'd be
So
silly.
how do you deal with that? So, I mean, granted, you've got some team members doing some extraordinary things, but we also know there's agents, to your point, that have really stepped back and said, man, this is really scary. And we have three choices, right? We can either run and flee. We get oftentimes a lot of people get very paralyzed, or the third is they kind of lean into the storm. So for you, how are you keeping a positive mindset? How are you staying your course in regards to just your business when it seems like every single place we turn, there's something from the media, there's something from someone saying something, a text that comes across, something that banners across our phone. Like, how are you staying positive? Like, what, talk a little bit about just how you do that. Like, really, like, get down to the nuts and bolts of how you do that. What are you doing daily to stay connected to yourself, to stay in the light, to stay positive? How are you doing that?
I try and look big picture, and I think there's issues when we look too short term. You know, I compare it to looking at a big, large picture. You know, on my wall in my office, I've got a big mural of Dodger Stadium, and you know, I've thought about, all right, if I get up this close, sorry guys, if I get up this close, I can't really see anything. I see a little blurry. You guys can't see anything. You see my beautiful eyelashes. Those nice. But, you know, you got to take a couple steps back to really see the whole picture. And, you know, I said this to my team, you know, in a text message a couple weeks ago. I said, what we all ultimately want for ourselves and our families hasn't changed in the long term, but what it will take to move toward it in the short term has changed. So these aren't things that are going to be in place forever. These aren't, you know, things that have been impossible to do. We can do this. It's really just taking a step back and saying, all right, is this the end of the world? I don't think so. You know, I guess I don't know either way, but
to your point, hold on. But to your point, though, Austin, even if it was, why would you not want to stay in a positive light, right? I mean, even if you're completely wrong, go down fighting, go down engaging yourself, go down leading, go down being, you know, someone who's bright and light and beautiful in their state, right? I mean, making sure that you really are there, because we each look. I think, what is it? Tony Robbins says either emotion's doing you or you're doing emotion, and meaning that you have control of those emotions, but somehow we say we don't, or we think we don't. We want to go to a place of feeling down. We want to go to a place of feeling you know, frustrated, and they're just emotions. So we can let those things go through you. If you guys haven't read, there's a great book called The Untethered Soul. The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. Man, huge recommendation. I just got done reading it. I'm reading it again. I've read it now, I think 5 different times, and it is about how to move through all these emotions that are coming on to us and how we hold on to them, or do we let them literally like wind just kind of run through us, and then we don't hold on to it and stay in that space of negativity, stay in that fearful state, because they're just emotions.
One thing that you know, our team is doing is we're doing kind of a book club, and right now we're reading Pound the Stone, and it's something I'd recommend. George, have you read that?
I have not. So say it again. I don't know if it was me who cut out or you, but just from our Wi-Fi. Say Pound the Stone. Is that what you said?
Pound the
Okay.
Stone. Yeah, it's by Joshua Medcalf. It's on Audible. It's incredible. It just talks about, you know, the kind of the premise of the book is, you know, you think of someone that is, you know, cutting stone, and they've got a hammer and they're hitting on this stone, and you know, 100 swings of the hammer on this stone doesn't break the rock. It's the 101st that breaks it, but it's not the 101st. It's the accumulation of all of those things leading up to that 101st.
Right.
And, you know,
I love that idea.
Are just exactly, in my opinion, what people need to be hearing right now. Talks about, you know, changing your what ifs to even if. You know, what if they hang up on me? What if they're upset at me? Well, even if they hang up on me, even if they're upset at me, even if, you know, the market collapses, I will find a way to do this. I will continue to pound the stone, knowing that really that is the big success, is pounding that stone daily, whatever it takes, you know, no matter what.
So here's a thought for you. We didn't talk about this yesterday. there's a number of people that are still doing business in today's market. Like they are contributing, they're calling their sphere, they're calling their leads. They're really doing some things that are really, really impressive from a business standpoint. And it's been interesting. And it doesn't matter. I've had these conversations in California. I've had these conversations in Utah. And the conversation is really this. How with everything that's going on, there's a little bit of this feeling like, well, wait a second, you shouldn't be doing business in today's market. Well, but wait a second, you shouldn't. People saying we should be staying home and not trying to figure out a way to do business, and we need to sit home. And in so many words, there's a group of people who feel like, hey, you got to sit there and suffer, and on the outside, but the agents having success, and the agents doing deals, and the agents having people who really, even with everything that's going on, and let's just say everything being done virtually, or getting the deal under contract and extending the inspection deadlines, they're feeling a little guilty for the people who are saying you shouldn't be doing business in today's market. How do you work through that? What counsel would you give to someone who's almost feeling a little guilty, like they shouldn't be working, and then they're working and they're even having success, but people are coming at them?
Say mind your own business, really. I mean,
because it's really crazy out there, right? I mean, we are in this little vacuum.
The family, and yeah, absolutely, be safe, social distance, do whatever the higher ups are asking us to do, and to be smart. But you got to think outside the box. One of the chapters in Pound the Stone is titled Paper Ceilings. And they talk about that, Roger Bannister story that we all know. No one can run a 4-minute mile until someone does, and then they start saying, "Oh, well, maybe that's not impossible." We were at a brokerage, Elite Realty, before we came over to Century 21, and we had a paper ceiling. We thought, "Hey, this is all the deals that can be done. This is the only thing that we can do." And we came to Everest and saw, oh my gosh, like. We kind of thought we were big shots, and we weren't. And it was neat to see that we can do more and be more. And I think it's the same thing with this. People are thinking like, oh, well, you can't do deals in this environment. You can't do these things. You can, and people are. And
yeah, they are.
I really do think, guys, it's the people that are still engaging and making connections with people. Those are the ones who are going to get through this. Those are the ones that are going to thrive through this and see the opportunity and say, how can I continue to bring value and be a leader to those people that I'm working with or that need me? Because there's so much uncertainty right now. And
I mean, if there's anything, I think it was in their base camp training yesterday. I know Karen Betancourt talked about it. I continue to talk about it, which is this: in simple terms, people are desperate to hear from you.
Yeah.
And then like, they are scared, they are afraid. Like, guys, this is the time. Yes, of course, keep yourself safe. But in the same sentence, you also need to act. And part of that acting is making the calls. It's about servicing, contributing. It's really about the tone of the voice, really, that we use, the tone of our message. We have to be very careful, even right now, from a social media standpoint, of what we're saying out there, from the standpoint of how business can be transacted, being very sensitive, because we could even tarnish ourselves by the way we may approach it. But the thing that is evident to me is that there are people who are absolutely committed at every level to wanting to buy or sell a piece of property. With the rates the way they are, or the needs that they have, they also will help find a way. And some of it may need to be delayed, maybe extensions on inspection, but this is about priming the pump. This isn't about stepping back and taking a seat and not doing anything. And I know it's been a hot button, but I keep saying, man, social distancing does not mean don't go to work. It just means that work's different. I mean, I'm standing here in our master bedroom in our home down in St. George. I'm doing the deal. I'm still working. I'm working all day today. So I've got 5 or 6 Zoom calls. It has nothing to coaching calls. I'm meeting with people from a safe space, if that makes sense. But when I'm working, so we've got to make sure we're working. And yes, as we work, we have to use the right tone. So let's assume, Austin, that I'm sitting in front of you and I am absolutely down and out, and I'm frustrated. I'm worried about my future. I'm worried about my economics. I'm worried about the deals that are either are or are not happening. What counsel would you give to me if I'm sitting in front of you and I'm really a little bit rattled right now? What would you tell me?
I'd say, hey, I've been there. I mean, I get it. I know how you're feeling. There have been different times in my life, you know, some of it of my own making, of bad choices, of not process. You know, my first go in real estate, that was a scary time when I closed, you know, total of 0 deals, you know, during that time.
Right.
And you know, I've been there on this as well. My advice would just be to take a step back and look at the things that have happened in history that human beings have gotten through. I mean, there have been crazy wars, there have been Spanish flus, there have been all kinds of things. People find a way. If they can find a way, you can find a way. That sitting and worrying is not going to do anything. Just staying
Well,
still, you know, wrapped up, guys, that's not going to do anything. You've got to get outside of yourself and look, all right, who do I have stewardship over? Even if it's just yourself. How am I going to take care of myself? How am I going to take care of others? You've got to find that, because just sitting there standing still is not going to do anything. It's going to
no.
ultimately be your demise.
So I think it's interesting. Your two words are just blaring in my head, and that is survival. Right? We figure out a way to survive, and as we survive, we begin to thrive. And then the other word is that you persevere, and that you basically, like you said, you pound the stone, and you just keep pounding the stone, and you go to work and doing that. What would be the two or
Can I
three?
share a story on that, George, actually?
Yeah, please.
It's
Yes.
about my grandma, and it's kind of a family saying that we have in our family, and I'll get to it. But you know, my mom grew up down in Santa Quin, Utah. It's like a little hole in the wall. There was nothing there when she was growing up, and there still is kind of nothing there now. If anyone knows where
Right.
Santa Quin is, but you know, this was during the Great Depression. My mom was not born at that time, but her mom and her dad were there. They had a bunch of kids, and the dad was away riding the rails trying to find work and send money back. And they had a horse that was their family horse, that was their transportation, that was their plow, that, I mean, was really very much tied to their livelihood. And one night, a cougar came and spooked the horse, and it got up against barbed wire and cut its chest open on this barbed wire, and you know, was bleeding. And you know, my grandma found out, and she went outside, and there's this horse laying there bleeding with a gaping gash on its chest. And in that moment, I mean, I suppose she could have thrown up her hands, sat down, and cried and said, "Oh, look at this! The horse is bleeding to death. That's it. We're done for. We're all gonna die." Literally, they needed that horse during this time. She didn't, though. She went and she had her kids, I think the youngest of which was 4. They sat on this horse, and she got a darning needle and yarn, and she stitched and sewed up this horse and saved her life, saved the horse's life, and saved the lives of her family, really. And so a motto in our family that we've kind of taken is sew up your horse. When things are hard, we have the
Hmm.
option of just saying, look at all these things. We can't control. This cougar came down and spooked this horse, and now it's going to die. And just sit there and cry. That's not going to get anything done. We've got to do the things that we have control over. And she had control over what she could do, and it was outside of the ordinary. She wasn't a nurse, or you know, probably much of a seamstress, but she sewed up her horse. And so, I mean, I think that really just is like, guys,
That's a great story, man. I love
got
that.
to sew up your horse. And that really has been kind of a motto of our family, that when things are hard, you know, sew up your horse.
It's great. That's great. I mean, I'm just, again, that relates to just, right. Figure it out. Do whatever it takes. Persevere. Push yourself through these things. And I think you were the one who got me. I have to tell you, you're the one who got me on this idea of recognizing really clearly, when a conversation we had last week, that we talked about the grieving process.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so profound, that each one of us are in different stages of this, right? When all of a sudden this market shift occurs in regards to, like, a freight train's going down the tracks and boom, all of a sudden business like changes radically the way that it's supposed to be being done or has been being done. And I remember we talked about that, and after that I went and said, man, I got to look this up and look at all these different levels of grieving, because I remembered some of them, but I thought it was very profound that, speak to that just a little bit of what you've seen from people really going through a grieving process at some level in regards to this.
Yeah, it's been really interesting. I came across an article talking about grief, and kind of clicked in my head. Like, yeah, this is what we're going through, and you can see
Totally.
stages of it. I can see it in myself. I can see it in other people, and you can kind of identify where people are at. In talking with other agents, with other people, with family, whoever. You can see where they're at, and first is that denial stage. And some people are still in denial that, oh, no, this is not going to change not going to change anything. Guys, it's changing a lot. It's got to change how business is being done. It doesn't mean you have to not succeed, but I still think people are in denial that, hey, this is going to have any kind of impact on anything that we're doing. It is, and it
Yeah,
has.
it is.
And then as you go through those things, I saw myself, denial, and then kind of an anger and fear was the next
Yep.
one. And that, that was an interesting phase for me, where you kind of do want to say, I can't do anything. I've got to, protect myself. I've got to, I was getting people texting me saying, hey, I need to go buy a gun. And like probably 5 people were like, and it came because they were
Right.
angry and kind of had some fear associated with that. And then the bargaining phase came for me. I'm like, I've got money, and that'll help me to weather this storm, and I'll get through this okay. And kind of blaming other people. Oh, this is, so-and-so's fault, or, someone should have seen this or done this. And then depression, that was fun. And then, then kind
Yeah,
of,
well, people get very hopeless, right? I mean, like, and especially when we're in a state of hopelessness, and then to have someone like me going, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, you can do this. Or even, it's interesting where people are is to whether the messages resonate right now. I mean, we've got nearly 100 people on this call, Austin, and I can tell you that someone's in denial, someone's in anger, someone's bargaining, pointing fingers. How could they? How could the government do this? How could I didn't save more? How come I didn't do more when I could? I mean, there's all this finger pointing, and then to where we've stopped at this point is there's that hopelessness, and then that the thing that's interesting is that some of us, I just want to point out with what you're saying is we each are moving through stages of that in different speeds. And some of us hold on to different segments of that grieving process as we're all going through this for a different period of time. And that's why I keep talking about that we're very fragile people, right? I mean, as resilient and strong as we are also very fragile. So give someone just a little bit of latitude, give them a little bit of space, a little bit of, hey, you know what? They're trying to do the best they know how to do, and they're trying their best, and give them a little bit of grace. Because the problem is that we may be all the way on the other side, which we'll get to in just one second, but someone still may be really angry. Someone still may be bargaining. Someone may still be completely in denial, or they're right. Like I've met a lot of people recently where they're really in that space of sadness and hopelessness and feeling like, my gosh, I mean, can I even get through this?
well,
So
I go
go
back
on to the
and
next,
forth
go to the next
to
ones.
different stages. Sometimes I'm like, I'm in acceptance. I got this. Things are good. Then I go back to denial and kind of go through it
Yeah.
again.
I know it's crazy, but I think understanding that we're going through that, it kind of makes some sense to us. Is like when we're feeling these different emotions, and once we realize we're really in a grieving process, is that we can take a step back, like you talked about, right? The Dodger Stadium. By all our California friends are going to love that you're like the ultimate Dodger fan. I mean, you wager against the purist of California for Dodger fan. This guy's a Dodger fan to the hilt. But it's interesting is that you just take a step back, you can start and say, okay, where am I right now? And you take a step back and say, man, do I want to stay here? Do I want to stay hopeless? Do I want to stay angry? Do I want to keep pointing the finger of blame and victimizing criticism? Our awareness allows us to change. So I think this is a really important topic. So go to the next 2 or 3 steps that are there.
So, after depression, I believe the next one is just acceptance. But again, I
right.
think
You start. No, you're right. That's at least, according to the doctors, right, or whatever, or the guys who are analyzing this, acceptance. Like, okay, this is my new life now. This is the new landscape.
Yeah, and things. Again, I go back and forth through these still, and I depends kind of the hour of the day, really. And for me, it's taking 2 steps back. Another good book to maybe kind of address some of the changing landscape that I've really liked is Who Moved My Cheese? And it's really
Yes.
kind of a short and silly read.
I have it sitting on my desk right now. It's sitting on my desk in Salt Lake.
It's someone may have moved your cheese a little bit in that you run through this little maze, and those who've read it know what I'm talking about. Those who haven't are gonna, what's he talking about? You run through this little maze every day and you find your cheese, and you know where that cheese is every single day. And then one day your cheese moved a little bit, or maybe a lot. And you can keep going back to that same place, doing those same things that you've always done and finding no cheese because it got moved. Or you can put on your running shoes and get back in the maze and go find a way to get more cheese in real estate. So silly little book, but it's a good book.
No, it's a great one. In fact, my wife Jennifer just got done reading it. She's like, "You need to reread this book." And I said, "I did like 20 years ago." She said, "No, you need to read it again." So I put it on my desk to read again. And it's what I mean. Austin's got to take someone no more than 2-3 hours at most to read the whole thing. If you not listen to it audio, but like reading it. I mean, it's a short little deal. So let's go to, so there's the acceptance portion. Then there's 2 other stages that they're often talked about. And there's what's called the recalculation or the recalibrating. And you kind of now know where you are, you accept where you are, and you say, okay, now what's my new strategy for business? Maybe is a good way to say it. You recalibrate. And then the next step is that once you've recalibrated and you've restructured, is that you then go to the last stage is that you start walking around with a level of confidence and certainty again. So wherever you are in the ups and the downs of this whole thing is that some of you right now are really needing to restructure, to recalibrate, to put a different strategy and then execute upon that strategy. And then all of a sudden there's this breath of confidence and this certainty that comes into us as we move forward. So we can't underestimate the magnitude of this cycle. And each one of us, to your point, that's such a great point, Austin, is we'll sometimes go back. Sometimes we'll go backwards. We'll get a little angry about things. I found myself a little angry yesterday with some stuff that was going on and going, man, how am I going back to some anger? I'm not really that angry about anything. And it took me almost all day to get kind of past that. I think you're so right on that. Such a brilliant thought.
Yeah, it's just interesting how what we do as humans and kind of how uncertainty affects us in different ways. And the certainty that we can control is, that's what I think we should be focusing on, and that's what I'm encouraging. Myself, others, people on my team, focus on what you can control. And it's hard when we kind of don't know. Well, how if we had an end date on like, all right, guys, we know this is all going to be done, June 1st. I think that would just, all right, we can deal with this. But the unknown and the uncertainty is hard and makes it very, very difficult. And so focusing on those things that you have control over, you can't control what the market does. You can't control who answers the phone. You can't control who, wants to buy or sell, or who gets coronavirus or anything like that. But you can focus on those things for yourself to keep yourself safe and productive still at the same time. You can control how many people you talk to. You can control your mindset. You can control if you are focusing on gratitudes and looking for ways to help other people and provide value to the market. Those are the things that we should be focusing on. And I found that sometimes we obviously want to take care of ourselves, right? And we should take care of ourselves. But if we can turn our focus onto other people and say, all right, how am I going to help them? How can I be the glue for other people to help them through some of this process? I mean, you forget about yourself. You forget about yourself, and it's a good thing. You stop,
Yeah.
you know, I had some appointments this last week, you know, that we went on, and in Utah here, real estate's been labeled an essential business, but it felt so good to go on an appointment and to be working and to be doing these kind of normal things and feeling that, getting back in that zone.
Right.
And encouraged my team, guys, focus on those things you can control, get back on the phones, you know, talk to people, have conversations. It feels so good to put off the doomsday news and actually just get back to some work.
Absolutely. So so we've got to wrap up, but just you are making my brain go crazy of thinking of things in a good way. And that is, I've been saying this to a few people. I want everyone to continue to have what I consider spiritual experiences. And my observation is that the way in which we have spiritual experiences, there's lots of other ways, but this is a great way to have them. There's two components to all of this. Number one is making sure that from a personal growth standpoint, right, that as we go through our lives, growth is so critical to our well-being, to our happiness. I didn't come up with it, but I love it. And that is that change is inevitable. Everything's going to change. We're experiencing change. Change is automatic. Growth is not. There's the growth components of what we read, what we study, what we listen to, who we become. But you've spoken to that key thing, that there's another component that brings it all together. That what if all of your growth was built within you so that you could go contribute, give, help, assist, bless the lives of another human being. And when you bring the components, like to your point of helping and getting out there and serving and doing something for someone and contributing to their life, there's this cool thing that happens between our personal growth and our contribution. Man, those are really sweet and tender moments of our lives. And so I hope that across the board that we're all looking to have more of those as we move through our life. So Austin, wrap us up. What final words of thought or counsel or thoughts, or what would you want this group to know, and what encouragement, last words could you give to us?
Yeah, I thank you, George, and I appreciate being on here, guys. Thank you for being on here and allowing me to share some thoughts and experiences and anything else with you. I hope it was beneficial, but the encouragement that I would give really is a message of hope that, you know, tough times don't last, but tough people do. And sew up your horse, guys. We've got this. There's another quote from Pound the Stone that I really like, and it says, when someone tells you something is impossible, what that really means is that it would take more sacrifice, grit, discipline, failure, and persistence than they are willing to give. Having success at this moment is not impossible. We can do this. We will get through it. And last little, you know, cliche phrase, maybe it's from a country song. It's every storm eventually runs out of rain. And there will be an end to this, as maybe as unforeseen as this has been, and we don't know how long. We will get through it. Things will work out. Continue to do what you've done. Focus on what you can control, and this will be a great time of growth for you.
Great. Love it. Well, thank you, Austin. Thank you for being you're a dear friend, and also you're an incredible professional in the industry. And thank you for your contribution today to this group. And you know, I am so excited for what people are figuring out about themselves. And to your point, this isn't going to last forever. So the question always for me is, how are you going to show up through all of this? Because there's going to be a day where you're going to look back on it and go, how did I respond to all of this crisis? Did I show up, and when it was all said and done, was I better or was I worse? And those are so much of a decision based on what you're talking about.
And I know we're probably running long, but I would caution people on the story that they tell themselves that, you know what, this coronavirus just ruined my career. Well, it doesn't have to. Don't let that be the story that you tell yourself, that this just
the label, right? The label.
Yeah. You're saying, oh, this is, you know, coronavirus just ruined everything for me. Like, guys, it doesn't have to. And deep down inside, you know, I mean, follow this man, follow what he's asking you to do. Be on these morning meetings, do these things, protect your mindset. You will get through this. Don't let this be something that at the end that you say, coronavirus ruined this. It was all out of my control. it wasn't, and it isn't, and you're going to know better. And you're going to have that tinge in your heart when you say, well, I didn't do what George asked me to do. I can't really say that it wasn't my fault that this hasn't worked out during this. Take ownership
Yeah.
of it.
Well, I was saying this yesterday, Austin. We'll wrap up with this. I'll say this last thing. It's this: life is happening for me, not to me.
Yep.
And there's something to be learned with everything that we're going through. But if we start playing the blame game and the victim game and defining the virus as being the result of our lives, the problem is that we miss out on such beautiful moments where we can literally let life unfold to us, let life happen for us, versus how life is happening to us. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We're going to do some affirmations. I know you're always available for anyone who would want to reach out to you. Can you throw out your email by chance, just if someone want to reach out to you?
Yeah, don't laugh at me. It's austinkales@hotmail. So people look at it, it's like it's
You know
an
what? Here's the good news. My
you know,
20-year-old daughter still uses Hotmail, and I'm like, no one uses Hotmail. So you
yeah,
and my
I do.
20-year-old
I've had it
daughter
since I was
uses
like
Hotmail.
15, and it's
Yeah,
just
well,
fun.
that's what she says. It's cool now. That's
I
awesome,
don't
man.
like
All right, I'm
change.
gonna throw you on mute.
That tells you about me. I don't like change so much. I'm still rocking the Hotmail. But yeah, please. I mean, call, text, or email if there's anything I can do to help. I mean, again, I really appreciate being able to help anybody any way that I can. It helps me, and if I can help somebody else, I'm happy to. So thank you.
Awesome, brother. Well, thank you for everything. I'm gonna meet you out. We're gonna do our affirmations, and then guys, have an extraordinary day. Go kick butt, take names, make it happen.
Thanks, George.